Nurse.org and Major League Sports teams are honoring nurses with discounted game tickets and once-in-a-lifetime experiences. From throwing the first pitch to riding the Zamboni to on-court recognition, join the fun. Visit nurse.org/nurse night to find a nurse appreciation event near you and grab your discounted tickets today. You're listening to Nurse Converse, presented by Nurse.org, a collaborative podcast amplifying diverse nurse voices. Get ready for a dose of inspiration, a sprinkle of education, and a whole lot of community.
Welcome to this episode of Nurse Converse, where I'm your host, Nurse Shenell Thompkins, and I'm bringing you this episode, A Nurse's Journey with an LVAD. And joining me is Tiffany Cannon, who has been a nurse for over 10 years with a background in med-surg, oncology, in the last 5 years in nephrology. And Tiffany's here to share her story of how at the age of 28 years old, Tiffany had to receive a LVAD, which is a left ventricular assistive device. And for my non-cardiac nurses, that is a heart device that Tiffany has to wear day in and day out. But we're going to explore Tiffany's journey through 4 main topics. 1, her journey to heart failure, what happened, and then 2, her retrieval of the LVAD, and at what point she had to make that decision, the process itself, and the adjustments that she's had to make. And then 3, we're going to talk about Tiffany's return to work and why she didn't take full disability. And then last but not least, we're going to get into advocacy and awareness and what Tiffany is doing to bring awareness to heart failure, maternal health, LVADs, and last but not least, the empowering both patients and nurses like ourselves. Thanks for joining me today, Tiffany, on Nurse Converse.
Yes, I am honored to be here with you, Shenell. I've been doing really great, so I'm excited.
Yes. Now, just getting right into it, Tiffany, just tell us your journey to heart failure. What happened?
So, yes, as you mentioned, I am a nurse, living, breathing, and working with an LVAD. So, just to take a brief moment of what led up to the LVAD, I just got married. Me and my husband found out that we were having a baby. So, just as any typical family, we went through the emotional roller coaster, which I go in more depth in my book, but just got married, trying to figure out how we're going to enter a new baby into this world. And we finally sat down, got a plan together, and we were ready. And so did my OB appointments, went through all that. Everything seemed smooth. I would say I had a great, if you want to describe a perfect pregnancy. It wasn't until I was going to go get induced, which I was a week late, but they said it was common. It was normal being my first pregnancy. I went in and I had a nurse that was training and I had a trainer. And they plugged up everything, got me all ready and together. And what I thought was everything was fine. I was normal. I was breathing well. They got me started on my medicine so that they can get me open so I can have my baby. What turned into some excitement, a little nervousness, ended up with multiple doctors in my room. The trainer nurse actually called it out. My heart rate was at 140 and I was just sitting there. And she immediately said, "There's something wrong." And I'm like, "No, I feel just fine." She was like, "Nope, I've been doing this for a very long time. There's something wrong." So I ended up with about 10 doctors in my room and the anesthesiologist coming in, yelling to tell everybody to turn off all the medications. It's making my heart worse, coming to me and telling me, "We're going to have to do emergency C-section on you. So we're going to head you down to the OR. My husband and my mom is right behind them running. They had to get a crash course on what's going to happen, when they're going to be able to come in. They're giving them gowns really quickly. Everything happened so fast. I think I wasn't able to really even grasp everything that was happening. I knew something was wrong, of course, with my nursing background. 10 doctors in your room is not just natural. But I just didn't know the impact of what was actually going on at the time. And they ended up having to they had to put me to sleep instead of epidural. And I woke up, and from pictures, I was able to hold my baby girl, but I was clearly out of it. I don't even remember seeing how she looked, smelled, or anything at that time. And with my CO2 dropping down so low, I ended up in CBICU, and I woke up the next day in CBICU. And that was my beginning journey of heart failure for me.
So you went in expecting to just have your baby. You worked all the way up until
Yeah.
you're ready to deliver, which we all do. If anyone listening, you work till the last day. I mean, raise your hand. But you get in there, something's not right. You end up in emergency C-section, which is not uncommon for some pregnancies, some labor and deliveries. But at some point, y'all had to have a conversation. And so just getting right into the retrieval of the LVAD, like at what point did the healthcare team come in and tell your family about your heart? And just tell us about that process and the adjustments, the recovery and the adjustments that you had to make.
So, as I say, I was in CVICU. Now, my baby girl is 1 day old, so she's still in the labor delivery room. And so my family was in there. They made it comfortable for them. They was like, y'all can stay in there because the baby still needs to be here. And so they were coming back and forth from my room, ICU, to her room. And my mom said she remembers sitting there. They all gather around my baby. They're just, loving this moment. And a doctor walks in and they were like, so your daughter, she's going into heart failure. Well, she's in heart failure and her heart is at 5% right now.
Wow.
And so my mom and my husband, everybody there, they was kind of puzzled. Like, and my mom said she even told them, like, I think you may have had the wrong room. Like, we're in labor and delivery. Like, we came to have a baby, go home and do that. Like, not heart failure. And he was like, no, I have the right patient. And actually, she's been in heart failure her whole entire pregnancy. But with everything going on, my blood pressure kind of going up a little high, my heart rate going up. And, I didn't actually gain any fluid, but shortness of breath, not being able to walk long distances, it all kind of got masked with my pregnancy. So I never knew. But he described how my heart was enlarged. It was just basically weak. 5% was what my heart was. And so they all came into my room at CBICU, and the doctor looked me straight in my eyes and told me, the same thing. You're in heart failure. Your heart is at 5%. And he even said, I don't even know how you made it to the hospital. That's how bad your heart is. And we would like to propose to put an LVAD in you. And I looked at that doctor straight in his eyes and said, no, absolutely not. I didn't give it no rhyme or reason. Then I was like, no, I don't even hear anymore. I don't want it. Because I do have history with an LVAD with my grandmother. She actually got an LVAD before moving into a heart transplant. So all I knew was it's a bag with batteries, a machine you got to carry around, and I didn't want any parts of it. And so I said no. And so he said, okay. He said, so the next plan is to try to get your heart as strong as it can be in the fastest time as we can get it. So I said, okay. So my family, surprisingly, they were okay with it. They were, I would say they wasn't okay with it, but they were supportive of me. And they knew how bad I didn't want it, even though it was something that could help me. At the time, I just wasn't able to receive it. And they had to stand. So I thank them every day, like the fact that y'all stood behind me, even though y'all are thinking like, girl, you need to get this LVAD, but they stood beside me. And so they did I had to get an impeller. That was kind of fell in my kidneys. So that didn't really work. And then I ended up on ECMO with an intubation. Just a tube going down my throat helping me to breathe, because at that point, my fluid had built up so much in my body that I was suffocating. And I could not. They tried all types of oxygen, the high flow oxygen. They tried everything possible to get me to breathe better before they had to intubate me. But it was, I could not breathe. And so, again, just like I woke up in CBICU, I ended up waking up with a tube down my throat in ICU with all these machines around me. So for them they didn't want my heart to overexert itself. So I had to be in an induced coma. And at that time, I was out of it. They had put me on all this medication to kind of keep me calm and settled. And during that time, it was like God had came upon me. And he said, and this is like a week span that I was in a coma. He came upon me and he said, get the LVAD. And I'm like, huh? And he was like, I need you to get the LVAD and I'm going to take care of your heart. So I said, okay. So when they started lifting up the medicine, because they just wanted to get a response from me, because time was ticking at that point. And soon as they woke me up and I started, kind of seeing my surroundings, still intubated, my husband and my mom was like right there in my face. I remember. And I just motioned to them before they could say anything. I motioned to them my heart and I held up the tube. And so my mom immediately caught it. She was like, heartmate 2. And I put up a thumbs up. She said, okay. And I remember her running out my room, yelling for them to go get the doctor so that she could let him know. So my doctor came in, he got in my face and he said, Tiffany, I need you to tell me that you want it. And I said it to him again, HeartMate 2, thumbs up. And he said, okay. He said, but we actually have the HeartMate 3. That's what we're going to put in. Is that okay? I said, yep, that's fine. And that next morning, I got rolled into the OR, got an LVAD placed in. And at that time, in the beginning, I'm not going to lie, with me being intubated, I still was on a lot of medications. I just remember having the tube down my throat, having all these bandages around me midline because they did have to open up my heart, my chest. And I just remember all this stuff around me. And the nurses would come in and they would clean the dressings. It was nothing on my end that I had to do at that time. So at that point, it was just like, okay, I got it. Okay, cool. And then just as the time got on and when I got extubated, the tube came out and I'm breathing on my own. And even when I went to step down and now they're making me responsible of putting in my batteries, and my mom and my husband had to get trained on how to clean my sites and everything. It started to become a little more real for me. And I'm not even going to lie. When I made the decision to get the LVAD, and when I heard God tell me he's going to take care of my heart, I immediately thought, okay, I'm going to get this. And before I leave this hospital, this LVAD is coming off. And I think that's why I was just so kind of coasting, if you will, to say, and I was okay with it because I'm like, okay, by the time I leave here, I'll have this off. And, you know, like I said, as we slowly started getting into that discharge and they started talking about going home with it, and the social worker bringing me information about the things I'm going to have to adjust and change, I'm like, okay, I might possibly be going home with this thing.
Yeah.
And so as I, prepare to go home, I started to get in the state of depression because I felt like everything is about to change now. Like, I'm going home with this device. Now everything I used to do, I can't do anymore. The adjustments that I had to make was such as, I couldn't submerge in water anymore. And I love the pool. I love the ocean. I love being on the beach. Couldn't submerge in water anymore because I couldn't get this site wet. Even the way I take showers, I have to rearrange my body to where it's not hitting directly onto my site because wetness causes bacteria. I'm on Coumadin because the machine, it's a machine that sits in my heart. And it's an assistive device. So my heart is still beating. It's still doing what it's supposed to do, but it's an assistive device for my heart because my left side was weak. And so it wasn't getting the blood from my right side like it's supposed to pull it out to all the rest of my body. So it was backflowing. And that's how I was getting the fluid in my lungs and not being able to breathe. So it helps me the device helps my left side to pump the blood from my right side and distribute it out to my body.
Yeah.
And it just kind of gives my right side of my heart some rest as well as my left side. And so that's a site coming out of my stomach, but it's going up into my heart. So infection control is a major thing. So making sure we're doing aseptic technique when we're changing my dressings and stuff. The Coumadin, like I said, I can't get a blood clot in this machine. So I'm on blood thinners all the time. So I have to watch what I eat. And I know, and that's one thing that helped me being a nurse, that I know if I'm eating something too green, if I'm eating too many greens and everything, I know to adjust my Coumadin to make sure my blood is staying thin. But, it started out with me being depressed about all this stuff. And God told me to write, hence why I have my book. But he told me to write and just write down all my emotions. And write down everything from start, middle, ongoing. And that's what I began to do. And once I started doing that, it was like something had switched in me. And what I was taking for granted and taken as why do I have to do this? It turned into gratitude. Because although I can't submerge in water, I have a daughter that I now can see grow up. She's 6 years old now. And every year I get to take her to her swim lessons and see her improve as a swimmer. Instead of me looking at it like, I have to plan out a day or a time for my husband to change my dressing, I get to spend time with my husband, which I didn't think I would have.
Yeah.
So it all turned into gratitude for me. And the things that I wanted to complain about and wanted to feel bad about, I couldn't anymore because I got the chance to do it.
Hey nurses, looking for exclusive discounts? Nurse.org has you covered with deals on everything. Save big on the essentials you need to excel in your career. Don't miss out. Visit nurse.org/discounts for the latest discounts made just for you.
Thank you, Tiffany. Your story is just so inspiring. Every time that I just connect with you, even from when we were on my podcast, All One Nurse Together, just hearing you even here, I realize a lot of the things that I do on a daily basis, or a lot of us get to do on a daily basis, we take for granted our bathing, eating, sleeping, and yet you've had to adapt in all those different areas. Traveling, traveling is already hard for anyone trying to get from point A to point B, especially through an airport. And so I just thank you for even sharing your story. And then when you talk about infection control and just maintenance overall, you had an emergency C-section, ended up with multiple devices in the ICU setting, from Impella to ECMO, which someone doesn't know what ECMO is. It is extracorporeal membrane oxygenation. So it's a machine that, depending on how they're using it, bypasses the lungs and the heart. It seems that you were at one point the sickest patient in the hospital at 28 years old.
The doctor actually went to my family while they were they ended up setting them up with a room in the hospital, and they went in there and they told them, your daughter is the sickest patient in this hospital.
Wow.
But we're going to do everything we possibly can to get her back to her baby girl.
Yes. And they actually did it. They did it. And so you come out of this, you get home. How long did you take for maternity leave after going through all these medical interventions?
So with the situation I was in, I was able to be off for 12 weeks. And at first it was, I was okay because I have a chapter in my book called A Prisoner in My Own Home. And it was just because when I got home, I wanted to be secluded. I didn't want anybody around me because I'm like, I don't want anybody coming and asking me questions or saying, what's that cord coming out and what does that do and how do you feel? I didn't want any of those questions. So I wanted to stay in my home, do nothing, go nowhere. I refused physical therapy and I couldn't even walk. I had to learn how to walk again, and I was refusing to go to therapy. And like I said, it wasn't until I had that switch of, God didn't take you through all of this for you to just sit at home and not share it and help other people. It's gotta be shown. And so that's what kind of brought me into the light of just like, yeah, it's time for you to get up and move.
Get up,
which is
around.
Why, I decided to go back to nursing.
Yeah. So speaking of getting right into the third main topic, your return back to work. So what was that like? When did you and your husband decide that, hey, I'm going to go to work? Because wasn't disability an option?
Disability was definitely an option. So social worker came in right before I was discharging and was letting me know, hey, let's go ahead and do your application. So after your maternity leave, by the time that's over, your disability will kick in because it's going to take a while. And just like I did with the doctor, I told her no. I was like, I don't need disability. And if I can be frank, I thought more so of, well, I'm not leaving here with this LVAD, so I will be able to go back to work. That was my initial thought. But then when I went home, I'm just like, this just cannot be it for me. You know what I mean? And so when I finally, turning my perspective around and realizing the gratitude I have and everything, the lessons that I've learned and the healing that I'm going through with this whole journey, I knew that I needed to go back to nursing. And so I talked to my husband, which he was on board, but he did have stipulations. Because mind you, I was working in the hospital before this and I was on call all the time. I would get up at 9:00 at night, go to the hospital. So he was like, I can't be at ease with those type of hours that you're working. It's going to have to be slow rolling. And my employer, they were okay with it. They were fine. They was going to move at the pace that I was willing to go. So I decided to go back to work. And my first patient that I got in ICU, I walk in that room and she's intubated. Tube down her throat, can't move. The emotions all came on me like a flood, and I had to run out the room. And I'm pretty sure the parents of her was just like, what happened? I ran out, I called my mom, and I'm like bawling. And I'm like, I thought I can do this. I don't know. It's just a lot of emotions. Everything is just coming back to me. And she was like, you got this. She said, take some walks, breathe. You got this. So I did just that. I got myself together and I told myself, it's a reason for all of this. You got it. So I went back in and introduced myself to her family. I introduced myself to her and I let them know what I'm here to do. And before I hooked up a machine, before I got any vitals, which is something I would typically do before I went through all this, I would typically go in, introduce myself, start hooking up, let's run, let's go. I stopped and took a moment and I asked her, was she comfortable? She, of course, said no. I said, okay. I said, I understand. I said, but you're going to be on this. You got to be still for at least 3 hours. Can I make you a little more comfortable to where you can be able to withstand that? And she put a thumbs up. She was trying to talk, and I told her, don't worry about talking. Thumbs up, left, right, we can make it work. So I took the time to rearrange her and position her to where she could be not just all the way comfortable, but a little more comfortable to sustain her dialysis treatment.
Yeah.
I did that. I took 5 to 6 minutes to do that. Then I got started. Her parents were just looking at me and just like, wow, like the way that you just, like you focus in on that before doing anything. And I just looked at them and I plainly told them I've been there before. And that moment, it just opened up a new doorway of nursing for me. Because with that situation, I realized I'm needed. Yeah. Like to be the patient and a nurse and how to bridge that gap, I'm needed. Yeah. So I couldn't stay in. If I couldn't have helped that girl being on disability, being at home, you know what I mean? And so it brought on a new level of thinking when it came to my nursing career. And that from that point on, it just changed the trajectory of my nursing.
Yes. As we've discussed in the past, you say you're nursing like you already thought you gave the best care anyhow. But now going through your experience, you're truly able to empathize with your patients.
Yes, because like I tell everybody, because I gave my book to a few nurses, and it's not to criticize nursing because I've been there. I've been that busy nurse that, I just got to get my tasks done. I got to make sure I pass my meds at this certain time and forget and neglect the care of the patient and the emotional side, you know what I mean? The physical side and all that. And it's more of just like seeing the good I went through, the ugly and the real ugly, and to learn from that. And to realize, like, some of the nurses that treated me in a way that I really didn't like as a patient, I remember those times when I treated some of my patients like that. So how can I change that? And to help a nurse of, hey, let's take just 5 seconds to do extra on this end before we go in to start doing our tasks. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's good. Now you're just really getting right into our last main topic, which is advocacy and awareness. So now just getting into advocacy and awareness, right into it. Tiffany, just tell what are some of the efforts that you're doing to bring awareness?
So with my journey, as I said before, I had the good, the bad, the ugly. Mm-hmm. Some of those stories that I remember in the hospital, for instance, the trainer nurse that was in labor and delivery with me, with everything going on, the anesthesiologist, I remember him coming up to me and saying, hey, I have a student that I want to do your epidural. Is that okay? And at that time, I'm seeing these doctors coming in and out. I'm wondering what's going on. Main thing is my baby okay? And I didn't feel comfortable, but I knew he needed training and all that. And before I can utter a word, my nurse jumps in and says, no, this is my patient, and I want you to do the epidural. I understand he needs his training, but in this situation, in this case, it's already a lot going on. I want you.
Yes.
That advocacy for me lit a fire in me afterwards. Like the way she spoke for me, knowing as uncomfortable I was in that situation, to take that barrier from me and apply that to it was so amazing. Yeah. And even like with my doctor, my cardiologist, the one that cut me open, put the device in me, after 3 weeks he come to me and asks, when last time have you seen your daughter? And I'm like, I haven't. Like, I'm in ICU, I haven't. And he was like, no, that's unacceptable. And so he's calling the infection control, the board, like everybody from the hospital, to make it to where my baby can get wheeled in the ICU so that I can hold her.
Yeah.
That's something he didn't even have to do. Like, I didn't even think about, like, man, I had not seen my daughter this whole time. And just the way that they found a need other than just medication, other than just, the daily ADLs, is that little stuff that can really make a patient feel like, okay, you really care about me. And so I'm so big on advocacy and just standing up for my patients. And then also with the awareness, I'm actually a ambassador for Abbott, which is the creator of the LVAD. And all that job entitles is just when someone is going through heart failure they're thinking that are going to need an LVAD or trying to decide whether they want an LVAD or not, they send me in. And I don't ever convince somebody that they have to get the LVAD. It's the best thing ever. I just tell my story.
Yeah.
And I feel like just telling my story, the good, the bad, the ugly, it will help you to make your decision on what you want to do. Everybody's story is not going to be the same, but for me to be able to walk in there and give them a sign of hope, because they were probably just like me. When I heard LVAD, I'm like, oh, my life is over. I'm going to have to walk around with this bag. I'm not going to be able to do anything. How am I going to be able to work with my kids, all that. I'm that hope that's like, yeah, I thought the same thing. And I'm living. One thing my doctor always told me when I got out the hospital, he said, you have your life back, but I want you to live. It's a difference in just having life and living. And he said to me, I want you to be able to live. And I've that imprinted on my heart, and I make sure that every day I'm living and I'm not putting myself in a box because I have heart disease, because I have an LVAD. And that's the hope that I give patients that are going through that journey. Like, I've been there and look where I'm at now. It seems rough, but I promise you there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And I always tell people, heart failure, heart disease is not a death sentence. It does not mean that your life is over. You may have to make some adjustments. There may be things you have to change, but it's not a death sentence. It's the way you see it and the perspective that you put on there on what your life will be.
That's good. So you have your life back. And your doctor, he said he wants you to live.
Want me to live.
So that's one thing. You got your life back, but he wants you to actually live. So live instead of just existing.
Existed, yes.
Yes, that's yes. And even in all that, you went from it being an inconvenience to having a heart of gratitude. From, I have to do this, to I get to do this. Yeah. With your husband, with your daughter.
Yes, because I'm still a full-time mom, a full-time wife, full-time worker, and a full-time with LVAD. And so it's not creating separate lives, it's to intertwine it all together.
Now, in what other ways are you bringing awareness as well? Like with your book. Tell us a little bit about your book and any other ways that you're bringing awareness.
Yes, so my book is not actually that one, A Journey to Supernatural Healing. This is my journal that I thought was just a journal of writing down all my emotions and everything that I went through from start, finish to ongoing, middle to ongoing. And you can get it on Amazon. And it's just A Journey Through Supernatural Healing by Tiffany Cannon. And like I said, I've given it to nurses and other patients and, just hoping it to be a blessing for everyone. And then you can also, for any further questions or bookings, you can connect with me through my email, which is tiffany.cannonjourney@gmail.com. That's TIFANY.CANNONJOURNEY@gmail.com.
In wrapping up today's episode, you can also follow me, Shenell Thompkins, on your social media accounts, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook. And my social media handle is @AllOneNurse. And if you're interested in my interview style podcast, you can find All One Nurse on your favorite podcast platform, or you can go to alloneNurse.com/podcast. And if you found this episode to be helpful, please rate and review this Nurse Converse podcast so that it will grow, as well as it gives me the opportunity to grow as a podcaster. And again, don't forget to share it with a friend. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for joining Nurse Converse, brought to you by Nurse.org. Help us grow by leaving a 5-star rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. Nurse.org supports nurses with career and education tips, life advice, and breaking news. Thank you for all you do and for being you.